Warning: contains adult content including harsh language, violence, and sexual themes, and may not be suitable for people under age 17.
Sorry, he said. It's just, that's a very important item, and I can't tell you what it is.
Nathaniel cautiously stepped towards him, and Damien pulled him into his arms. Nathaniel blinked and then blushed, closing his eyes. They stood there, embracing, for quite a few minutes, and then Damien gently pushed Nathaniel onto the couch and sat next to him. Did we really have sex last night? He asked timidly, hoping maybe it had been a dream, but knowing full well that it hadn't.
You can't possibly tell me you don't remember,
said Damien, and his face broke into his usual smirk.
After all the things I did to you?
Nathaniel blushed even more, gaze falling to his knees. Damien leaned in closer so that his lips gently brushed against his ear, making Nathaniel shiver slightly.
Did it feel good?
He breathed, moving on top of him. Nathaniel clenched his fists, gripping the fabric on the couch cushions.
Did you like me moving inside of you? How I caressed and explored your beautiful body? Did you like it when I made you moan?
Yes, said Nathaniel just as quietly as Damien. His whole body was on fire, feeling Damien's bare chest against his. Their hips were pressed firmly together. Damien's hands were traveling down his side, creeping into his pants.
You felt so good,
he said, so seductively Nathaniel could hardly take it.
And how you screamed. God, I felt I'd lose my head right then and there, crying out, saying my name.
Nathaniel squirmed as Damien's hand had reached its destination, running its nails over the most sensitive parts.
I didn't want to stop. I could have fucked you all night if we hadn't needed sleep.
Stop! Nathaniel gasped. He realized he had been holding his breath. Damien looked at him boredly, as if he was tempted to disobey. I'm scared, Damien. Scared and confused. I don't know what's wrong with me.
You've experienced one of the most pleasurable things in life,
Damien said comfortingly. But with another man. With you, he replied, looking away. Damien gently touched his chin, forcing his gaze back to his pale face.
Don't be afraid,
he purred.
You don't know how long I've wanted you, and it was driving me crazy, especially since I was scared and confused as well.
You were?
Of course. I didn't know I liked guys, not until I got closer to you.
He laughed softly.
It was so much fun to see your reactions when I made sexual innuendos with my phrasing.
So you were doing it on purpose, said Nathaniel matter-of-factly.
At first I was just doing it for fun,
said Damien.
But then I started doing it to see you blush. Part of me knew you liked me, but still, I wasn't even sure if I liked you myself.
Do you like me? He asked slowly.
Oh, yeah,
Damien replied, giving his hips a sudden jerk, making Nathaniel moan involuntarily. He blushed, closing his eyes, not sure what to think.
I want to do it again, Nathaniel.
Do what? He asked, knowing full well what.
I want to fuck you,
Damien replied, biting Nathaniel's lip very gently.
I want to dominate you and feel you, see your gorgeous face while I'm fucking you. I can see it much better in the light down here.
I'm very self-conscious.
I don't care.
He started unbuttoning Nathaniel's pants, but then he grabbed Damien's hand. Oh, wait! He gasped. No! Damien furrowed his brow, not liking the rejection.
What?
He snapped.
I thought you said you liked it.
I did, said Nathaniel. But
what?
Damien was starting to get angry and hurt. Nathaniel cowered slightly, bowing his head, but not breaking eye contact. I want, he stammered, blushing furiously still. I want... Damien's glare suddenly turned into a wicked grin.
Oh,
he said.
I see what's going on.
Nathaniel's eyes widened as he stared at him.
You want to explore my body? don't you?
He replied quietly, looking away. Damien slowly got off of Nathaniel and lay back on the other side of the couch.
Well, come on then. Do whatever you want.
He grinned even more.
Whatever you want. I'm not picky.
Nathaniel whimpered slightly, scanning Damien's body. What would his father think if he knew he was doing this? He was so completely frightened of these thoughts and urges, but he didn't want to resist them. He wanted Damien's body. It gave him thrill, excitement, and pleasure. Nathaniel had never felt these things in sexual form, for he had never had sexual thoughts. It's not that he wasn't capable, it just never happened. He was too pure. But now, Nathaniel was tainted, and it felt good. I'm nervous, he said softly.
Just do whatever your little golden heart tells you,
said Damien, laying his head back and closing his eyes. Nathaniel bit his tongue.
Don't even think about it. Do whatever you desire.
Nathaniel closed his eyes tightly, and then opened them again, cautiously crawling on top of him. Damien brought his head forward to look at him again, still smiling and biting his lip. He looked incredibly sexy. Nathaniel stared at Damien's pale, perfectly toned torso, and then leaned down to lick his abdomen gently. He felt Damien tremble.
Good boy,
he whispered. Nathaniel closed his eyes, licking rather more enthusiastically than before, and started to make his way closer to Damien's neck. When he reached it, he nipped at the skin lightly, causing Damien to utter small sounds of pleasure. He then proceeded to licking his jawbone, then the corner of his lips, and finally started kissing him. They kissed even more passionately than they had the previous day, Damien wrapping his arms around Nathaniel so tightly it was like they were glued together. Nathaniel dug his fingers into Damien's soft, fine hair. After a moment they broke apart, and Damien smiled sensually at him, gently tracing Nathaniel's lips with his index finger. Nathaniel grabbed Damien's wrist and started to lick the tip of his finger. He then sucked on it very softly.
Do I taste good?
Damien whispered. Mm-hmm, Nathaniel replied, the finger still in his mouth.
I've got something else you can suck on,
said Damien in a low purr, and he took his finger out of Nathaniel's mouth.
Why don't you see if you can find it?
Nathaniel was overcome with ecstasy and lust, giving a playful little smile and trailing his hand down Damien's abdomen to the button on his pants. He undid the button, zipped down his pants, and pulled them and Damien's undergarments down just far enough to expose him. Damien watched him, breathing heavily with anticipation as Nathaniel bent lower. Just then a muffled tune sounded from Nathaniel's backpack, which was sitting where they had been drawing on Friday. He lifted his head again, looking over at the bag. Damien forcefully pulled Nathaniel back down.
Ignore it,
he demanded. I can't, Nathaniel argued. It's my father.
Just let it go to voicemail,
said Damien, sounding frustrated. I can't, he repeated. I have to answer my father when he calls. He only calls when he needs to tell me something very important. Damien gave a heavy, angry sigh, relaxing and pulling his pants back up.
Whatever,
he said quietly. Nathaniel got off the couch and went to go dig his phone out of his backpack to answer it. Damien let out a frustrated growl, staring at the ceiling. He tried to listen to what Nathaniel was saying on the phone, but he was speaking very quietly, so he could only pick out certain things. No, I don't want to come home. I'm with Damien right now. No, I haven't seen anything. Damien's temper was rising higher and higher the longer Nathaniel stayed away. At long last, he ended the conversation with his father and returned to the living room, looking down at Damien and receiving a murderous glare. I'm sorry.
Don't give me that shit,
Damien snapped, and he suddenly stood up and pushed Nathaniel hard, sending him to the floor. Damien dropped down and pinned him, once again showing off his dominance and power.
You don't get to suck me off yet, because I'm going to punish you for leaving me hanging.
Punish me? Said Nathaniel, frightened. How will you do that? Damien smirked again, perking an eyebrow.
I'm going to fuck your brains out,
he said nonchalantly. Nathaniel was laying on the floor, naked and panting, massaging a large bruise on his neck. Damien was sitting up and watching him silently, getting a small pleasure out of seeing him so tired and weak. He looked up at Damien, trying to catch his breath, A sudden smile appeared on his face, and he gave a helpless laugh. "Maybe I should disobey you more often," he joked, and Damien laughed as well.
"You don't need to disobey me to get me to rock your world,"
he said softly.
"I'll do it when I want, where I want, and I'll make sure you have trouble walking when I'm done."
"You're so perverted," said Nathaniel with another weak laugh. Damien's cocky smile changed to his very kind and caring one, as he leaned down and gave Nathaniel a very light kiss.
"You know I like you, Nathaniel,"
he whispered, and Nathaniel could hear this gentle tone in his voice he'd never heard from him before.
"I know,"
he replied.
"I don't think you do,"
said Damien.
"I like you. I really like you."
I know that, Damien," said Nathaniel, furrowing his brow in confusion. "I like you too."
I'm trying to say that—"
It seemed like he couldn't get out whatever he was trying to tell him. He sighed and grabbed both their pants, handing Nathaniel's to him. "You can tell me anything," said Nathaniel as he put on his pants, but Damien didn't respond. He stood up and lay on the couch.
"Come lay with me,"
he said softly, and Nathaniel obeyed, gently laying on top of him and resting his head on his chest. Damien stroked his hair slowly with one hand, the other caressing his back. After a few minutes, he asked,
"Can I really tell you anything?"
"Of course," said Nathaniel sleepily.
"And you won't get freaked out or nothing?"
"No."
"Promise?"
"Promise."
"Then I do have to tell you something."
"Go ahead. You can trust me," Nathaniel assured him. Damien didn't speak right away. He took a very deep breath.
"The reason I wanted to have sex with you so bad and so soon is because—"
He tightened his hold on him.
"Is because I won't be around for much longer."
"Wait, why?" Nathaniel asked quickly, abruptly pulling away from him.
"In about a month, my father is going to take me back home."
"This is your home!"
"It's not,"
said Damien sadly.
"It's just temporary. Nathaniel, I had a very good reason for hating you when we first met. And honestly, right now, I can't believe I'm willing to admit that I like you. Really, really like you."
Nathaniel's lip trembled.
"But, I want to tell you, but my dad would murder me."
"You can tell me anything, Damien," said Nathaniel desperately. "Your father need never know. I'll be honest. After last night, I wanted to leave and never come back. I'm still confused and afraid of what's happening between us. But something kept me here. I don't know what's going on in my head right now."
"I can't tell you this. You'll hate me forever."
Damien actually started to cry. It was heartbreaking, but somehow he still looked beautiful. Nathaniel bit his lip. Was it worth the risk? "I'll tell you my biggest secret," he said softly. Damien sniffled, looking at him.
"Really?"
he asked. "Yes," Nathaniel replied. "Needless to say, I am risking a lot by telling you, and my father would be so angry and disappointed with me. But I'll only tell you if you tell yours afterward." Damien let out a deep breath and nodded. Nathaniel got off the couch, then looked at the floor, nervous and scared. Did he dare do it? Did he dare show him? "I have to," he thought. "I have to because I'm part of his life now, and he's a part of mine." Finally, he closed his eyes. Damien gasped, sitting up quickly as Nathaniel's body seemed to glow unnaturally bright, so bright that it was blinding. Nathaniel closed his eyes and relaxed his body, his lustrous gold hair flowing softly as if there was a light wind in the room. Then the scars on his back ripped open, and two majestic, beautiful white wings sprouted and spread wide around his body. At last the glow diminished, and Nathaniel looked back at Damien, whose jaw had dropped.